The Muppets, coming from a long line of characters created by Jim Henson and dating all the way back to 1955, the ensemble cast of puppets have evolved to get their own shows, from Sesame Street to The Muppet Show, Muppet movies, and appearances in just about everything. As such, it seems only natural that the franchise would extend into video games. A lot of video games actually, and we're going to take a look at all of them. We've got educational games, FMVs, platformers, and one of the worst games I have ever played. It's time to play the music, it's time to light the lights, it's time to plug in your controller, because it's a Video Game Odyssey for The Muppets. The Muppets don't really need any introduction, do they? Over the past 60 plus years, they've made their way into all forms of media, TV series, blockbuster movies. They're there when you're a young kid in Sesame Street, and when you grow up, they're on the big screen. There's even cameos in other franchises, and them showing up in other award shows and the like. I'd say they're more prolific than Disney, but even Disney brought the franchise in 2004, only widening their reach. The Muppets rely on a timeless charm, a humour that appeals to all, but also able to reinvent itself when necessary and adapt to change. I think I would have had my first exposure to the Muppets proper when I saw The Muppets Tonight on TV. I know it's not the most beloved iteration of the franchise, but I enjoyed it enough as a kid. The video games for the Muppets reflect the franchise's diversity too, and while nearly all of them have come and gone without any real impact, there's some hidden gems in here that are a real testament to the franchise. Also some not-so-hidden gems, more garbage rocks or something. So let's get started with this. Oh, and before we do, just to note that I won't be including Sesame Street video games in this video, even though they technically fall under the Muppets umbrella. Maybe I'll do all of those at some point in the future. The very first Muppets game was Pigs in Space, released for the Atari 2600 in 1983. It's unsurprisingly based on the Pigs in Space sketches from The Muppet Show. Booting it up, we can choose to play one of 3 levels, each allowing you to play as one of the 3 pigs from the sketches. First is Chicken Invaders, where we play as Captain Link Hogthrob, the Captain Kirk William Shatner parody if you couldn't tell, and shoot sausages at chickens descending from the screen. A pig shooting sausages raises questions. Occasionally, Gonzo flies across the top of the screen too, who you can shoot for bonus points. But yes, as you can probably tell, it's just Space Invaders with pigs. The next level is Pastoroids, which sees you playing as Miss Piggy and dodging spaghetti and meatballs. Get it? Pastoroids? To get from the bottom of the screen to the top. Yes, as you can probably tell, it's just Frogger with pigs. The third level, Planet of the Gonzoids, features Dr. Strangepork navigating through an asteroid field or some tunnels in space as you shoot at the Gonzoids that fire pizzas at you. This one is a fair bit more difficult than the other two, as there's little room to dodge the pizzas, and you shoot these weird boomerang missiles that you have to calculate their firing arc on to hit anything. But yes, it's every vertical shooter ever, with pigs. Upon the completion of any level, you're sent back to the level select screen to choose another. You can even choose the same one if you wish. Every 10,000 points gets you an extra life, and you can just keep on going until you run out of lives. There's not much point though, the levels never change no matter how much you repeat them. It's a basic game that at least functions properly and is fairly simple, apart from that last level. But the gameplay is just weak imitations of better games, and the fairly basic graphics don't make the addition of the Muppets license really noteworthy. The next video game was not actually completed. It was Miss Piggy's Wedding, due for release in 1984 for the Atari 2600 again. While it was never completed, a prototype made its way onto the internet at some point, so we can at least see a bit of what it was like. This is a 2-player game in which one player controls Kermit and one Miss Piggy. You are in a church and Kermit must try and escape marrying Miss Piggy by collecting a key and escaping to a taxi outside. Miss Piggy meanwhile must stop Kermit and can collect the key to close the doors. Gonzo's at the top, but he does nothing. This scene you might notice is based on a scene from the 1984 film Muppets Take Manhattan, and probably would have been released in conjunction with it. The game was developed in around 1983, so the developers must have had some insight into how the movie was going to unfold. The game is incomplete as mentioned, and the only thing that works is collecting the keys to open or close the doors, and Piggy touching Kermit just crashes the game. And you can't actually escape the church anyway. Sorry Kermit, there is no escape. What features the game would have had or how it would have actually worked is unknown. The game was developed as part of Atari's children's series, but said series was cancelled and so was this. The last game in this series being the previous game, Pigs in Space. Even if it had been completed, I doubt it would have amounted to anything interesting. It's a two-player game with probably only this stage to play, and I'm not sure how they could have added in extra features to make it a more substantial game. Still, there was a fair amount of progress made on this game, so it's worth mentioning here. Now we move on to the genre that takes up a huge chunk of the Muppets games. Educational games. Yes, truly the best way to learn to read, write and count at the level of a 5 to 8 year old is to be taught them by a talking frog. You might not count these as actual Muppet games, but for completionist's sake I will. The first such game is Muppets Learning Keys, released for the Commodore 64 and Apple II computers in 1984. This one consists of 3 simple games to get you learning. There's Discovery, which lets you press any letter and something beginning with that letter, like A for alligator, will appear on screen. Obviously, X is for xylophone and Z is for zebra. What? Zip? Oh, come on. Every child learns zebra as their first Z word. What is this zip nonsense? Following on from that, the Letters game shows you an object from the Discovery game and tasks you with pressing the appropriate letter. And finally, the Numbers game shows you a number of the same objects between 1 and 9, and you have to press the correct number. Perhaps the most interesting thing about this game is that it is only playable with the gamepad that comes with the game. You might think this is quite odd given that this game only needs you to type numbers and letters, and both the Commodore 64 and Apple II have perfectly good keyboards. Maybe kids couldn't comprehend the complexity of a full-size keyboard in the 80s. The game was re-released a few years later, allowing keyboard support though, as we shall see. There's no real differences between the Commodore 64 and Apple II versions, just slightly different colour palettes owing to the capability of each system. Nothing to really report there. Also from 1984 we get Welcome Aboard, a Muppet's Guide to Computer Literacy, also released for the Commodore 64 and Apple II. The game starts off with you boarding a state-of-the-art cruise ship captained by one Kermit the Frog. What makes this ship state-of-the-art? Well, it's that everything here is run by those newfangled computer things. You, presumably a small child, are quickly put to work, and you can explore the different areas of the ship, each occupied by a different Muppet that you can meet. On the bridge, you can helm the ship and plot a course using a version of the classic program logo to teach basic programming. Careful of the Bermuda Triangle there. In the message center, Scoot will set up an email account for you, and you can email the different Muppets and even get responses from them. In the computer room, you can learn to write text documents. The beauty parlor lets you dress up Miss Piggy in anything really. House? Kangaroo? Gear stick? Rat's nest? Sure, go for it. I don't know if she will approve of your fashion choices though. You can also go see Sam Eagle in the game room, which he doesn't seem happy about being in charge of. This allows you to play an actual game, which just consists in going around this maze trying to turn all the squares blue, while the black squares move around trying to turn them grey. Turn all of the squares blue to go to the next level, and complete all 5 levels to get a little light display. Finally, you can head to the joke room, where as you might guess, Fozzie is there with his jokes. This one teaches children how to search databases, namely Fozzie's joke database, and you can filter the jokes based on whether or not they include or exclude certain terms, all the basic database search stuff. You can get jokes on bananas and Polish. What has Fozzie got against the people of Poland? That's extremely questionable, Fozzie. And that's it. You can check the hold for the rats and the engine room for the credits, but nothing else. All in all, I suppose this is actually a pretty good introduction to computers with word processing, drawing, mailing, database searching. It's quite robust. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of gameplay here, it is primarily educational, but it at least has a fair amount of effort put into showing off the potential of a computer to younger users. Once again, there's no difference between the Commodore 64 and Apple II versions apart from the colour palettes, and the Apple II version loads quicker. But the one thing we can take away from this game is, just what does Fozzie have against the people of Poland? Kermit's electronic Storymaker, again released in 1984 for the Commodore 64 and Apple II, gives you the opportunity to build a little story using the Muppets in different settings. You can choose Kermit, Gonzo, Miss Piggy, a bathtub, and put them in settings such as space, the jungle, or the city. Or you can just have Miss Piggy dance on a hippo in a bowl of soup. Your imagination is the limit. Actually, it's not. There's not that many options to choose from, but you can have a little fun with it, I suppose, alongside saving your favourite stories to disk. The Apple II version is slightly better this time due to the bigger and clearer graphics. The only other difference being the end screen having the characters on it in the Apple II version, while the C64 version just says the end. Moving ahead a year to 1985, we get The Great Gonzo in Wordrider, which yes, was released on the Commodore 64 and Apple II. The opening provides the story for the game. Gonzo receives a telegram that his beloved Camilla the chicken has been taken to the castle of the Swedish chef for dinner. Literally. Gonzo heads to Dr. Bunsen's lab to help him make it to the castle in time, and who offers to let Gonzo use his inventions to get there. You have to travel through 3 stages to get there, at each point having to choose what stage from the selection available. Each of these stages is also named with a hilarious chicken-based puns such as Chick Argo, Himalayan Mountains, and Yellow Yoke National Park, oh come on! At each level, you'll have to choose the type of craft and attachment which you think will benefit that level. Some of them are obvious, such as the submarine for underwater, while some you'll need to think about. If you get through the stage, which is just one screen, you'll get 25 points, and you'll need 75, aka complete 3 stages to reach the castle and pay the toll to the troll. You can also earn a few bonus points on stages if you choose the right attachment to use against the hazards there. If you fail a stage, you'll have to try another one, but you can only use each vehicle and attachment once, so you need to give some thought to what you choose. All in all, it's not difficult. The only level which presented a real problem is the Carlsberg Caverns, which even if you use the flashlight attachment to light it up, is near impossible to control through the tunnels and outrun the enemies. Avoid that level though, and this game can be done in less than 5 minutes as you head into the castle and rescue Camilla. Once again, no real difference in the gameplay between the 2 versions, just slightly different images. At least it's not an educational game, although it is teaching problem solving I guess, but Wordrider doesn't really have that much gameplay and is quite easy to figure out. I do like the box art though. The next game is Muppetville, released in 1986 only for the Apple II this time. Sorry C64 fans. It's once again an educational game, which allows you to visit the different areas of Muppetville. In the hotel, you have to do a matching pairs game to find the pairs of shapes through the windows, after which Statler and Waldorf show up. The apartment is more of the same, but it's music instead of shapes. Finish these and Animal rushes out. At the zoo, it's more pair matching with more shapes and Gonzo, but the shapes have different facial expressions to throw you off. At school with Sam the Eagle, you have to match the side of the dice with the corresponding number. Doing so allows Sam to show up and we get an all-American song. What would you expect from a school run by Sam? The movie theatre allows you to see different images depending on the letter you press on the keyboard, similar to the discovery level in Muppets Learning Keys. And yes, Z still stands for zipper apparently. Still haven't learned about zebras, I suppose. And in the factory, we get to do some basic sums with Bunsen and Beaker. Overall, the game is mostly just pair matching minigames, so there's not much variety or educational content, but big, colourful images and sounds might be nice for children in 1986. Another Apple II exclusive from 1986 is Muppet's Wordbook. This one is somewhat similar to Muppetville, but has a list of chapters from a book to go through. The parking lot requires you to allocate parking spaces that separate 2 different kinds of shapes. Letters or numbers, symbols or shapes, that sort of thing. All aided by Kermit in his very fetching parking warden sash or something. The elevator sees you and Scooter pick up letters and drop them off at the floor when they belong. The zippers are back! There's a Pigs in Space level, again based on the skits from the Muppet Show. It's like the movie theatre from the previous Muppetville game, where you press a letter on the keyboard and an object beginning with that letter appears. Although this time press Z and we get zap. I don't know about that one. I'm converted, bring back the zipper. The circus with Gonzo requires us to finish the word by choosing the appropriate letter. The Muppet Labs is the reverse, completing a word given the first letter, all with the help of Bunsen and Beaker, to fill up a beaker with the right formula. And finally, Muppet Words just allows you to write things. Easy. Again, not too much to this one, but it is bright and colourful and features plenty of the Muppets themselves. Now we come to Muppets on Stage, released for the Apple II in 1987 and Commodore 64 in 1988. This game is just the re-release of Muppets Learning Keys mentioned earlier, with the difference being that Muppets on Stage doesn't come with or require the special keypad, and it can be played normally on the home computer's keyboard. Other than the title screen, everything is the same. There's a Muppets print kit released on the Commodore 64 in 1989, which also allows you to design print banners, birthday cards and the like using various images of the Muppets. While it's not really a game and more miscellaneous software, I'm just mentioning it here for completionist's sake. We finally free ourselves of educational games, for the moment, in 1988, in a strange twist involving a console you may not have heard of that sold its games on videotapes. It's the Viewmaster Interactive. There were not a lot of games released for this thing. There were a few Disney games and, of course, two based on the Muppets. The first one is Muppet Madness, which sees Kermit visit Muppet Labs and go on a bunch of different adventures featuring the Muppets. The game works by setting up the console's control pad on the screen, and it overlays graphics on top of the VHS footage too. During the different minigames, you press the buttons to do different tasks, which the console will know whether you succeed or fail based on the time the videotape has been running. The video also has two separate audio tracks, and making choices at different points changes those tracks. For example, if you win at a minigame, the audio track will be the one which tells you that you won, while losing will have the characters talking about how you lost. The game, and tape, continues either way. The visual track never changes, so the audio tracks are cleverly made so that they both fit the mouth movements on screen. Like I say, it's an absurdly complicated setup. With the runtime of about 35 minutes, there's not too much gameplay or interactivity, but it is nicely done in the sense that it has all of the original Muppets and voices to make it feel like a genuine Muppet experience. The second Viewmaster interactive game is Muppet Presents You're the Director. This is similar in format to Muppet Madness. The story sees you turn up as a director to the Muppets' failing movie studio, and you have to direct the studio to success or face bankruptcy. The different minigames again determine the outcome of the game, switching audio tracks that both fit the visuals from the tape. If you succeed in enough actions, you get a song about getting rich. If you lose, you get a song about the studio going broke. It again runs about 35 minutes, but it is nicely presented and acted. As you can imagine, making games for this system comes with some very big limitations in the format, which explains why only big companies such as Disney and Jim Henson Productions, before they became part of Disney, were able to produce games for it. Now it's time for the return of the more typical kind of video game, and non-educational one at that. Muppet Adventures Chaos at the Carnival was released for MS-DOS, Apple II and the Commodore 64, with a NES version following in 1990. We'll look at the NES version last since it is a little different and start with the others first, specifically the DOS version. The opening gives us the story of the game. Apparently, Miss Piggy is being kidnapped by the villainous Dr. Grump, and he has imprisoned her in the carnival. Now the Muppets must team up to get the tickets from the various rides to confront Dr. Grump and save Miss Piggy. Dr. Grump is perhaps the least impressive name for a villain ever, and has never appeared in any Muppet stuff before or after this. He's also probably no relation to the Sesame Street character Donald Grump, who might be based on someone, I don't know. Heading into the game proper, we see the various rides of the carnival, which act as the different levels of the game. Upon selecting one, you can choose a Muppet to play as from Scooter, Animal, Rolf, Fozzie, Kermit or Gonzo, although it makes no actual difference to the gameplay. In the bumper car level, you have to go around the very small circuit 5 times in the time limit, while avoiding Miss Piggy and I assume Dr. Grump in the other cars on the circuit. The physics of the bumper cars are annoying as you'd expect, but honestly, once you get the hang of it, this one's fairly easily. When you complete a level, you'll get a screen telling you to get psyched. Get psyched? I don't think anyone's been psyched since 1992. Moving on, the Funhouse level has you moving through a maze to get to the end, with all these dogs running around that will stop you if they bite you too many times. This one is really annoying as there's no real way to avoid the dogs most of the time. Moving on to the Tunnel of Love, you have to maneuver your boat through the ride and avoid the various crocodiles, branches and sewage to survive the 60 seconds. Ah yes, nothing says love like raw sewage. The obstacles come at you fairly fast, so it is difficult to avoid them a lot of the time, but you can cheese it a little by staying in the top left or right, where most obstacles will miss you. I'll take whatever cheese I can find to get through this. Next is Duck Hunt, where you'll have to throw tomatoes at hordes of ducks as they charge towards you. Bit harsh really, what have the ducks done? Simply hit more ducks than you let get past you, and you're done. Super easy. Then we have the Space Ride, which tasks you with flying your little space pod craft thing into the holes in the biggest spaceship. This is the most annoying level in the game, purely because the controls make it horrific to maneuver your craft about, and it requires tight accuracy to get the thing in the hole. It accelerates super slowly until it goes too fast. You can only rotate in 4 directions, and there's also a shower of meteors you need to avoid that. By the time you see them, you don't have the time to move away. Completing all of those levels, we are thrust into the final level of the game, the boss battle against the Grumposaurus. Wasn't the villain Dr. Grump? Apparently they're completely different, but this version doesn't really specify that. Also, the Grumposaurus seems to look like if Mr. Blobby got swole. The aim here is to tickle the Grumposaurus 3 times before the timer runs out. Oh I see, we can pelt ducks with tomatoes just fine, but there's no way we can throw weapons at a literal monster. There are multiple issues with this boss battle. Firstly, tornadoes cover the screen, and touching one just sends you back and blocks any path to the Grumposaurus. Secondly, you have to jump to reach the boss, but you have no control over your jump, you just launch yourself up from the one side of the screen to the other. And as mentioned, all the obstacles are impossible to avoid. Thirdly, the Grumposaurus has a minuscule hitbox. You have to tickle him in a very specific spot, which I think is his knee. You ever had your knee tickled? Don't answer that. All in all, it's just such a huge difficulty spike trying to get a hit on this thing that it feels grossly unfair. The game might just block you from getting any hits in if it feels like it. If you do manage to tickle the Grumposaurus to death, you get this weird ending screen with Kermit reuniting with Miss Piggy, and that's it, I guess. Not really a lot of gameplay, very basic graphics and some frustrating controls make this a pretty bad experience. Before we judge the game completely, let's take a look at the other versions. The Commodore 64 version has the same structure with obviously different graphics, but while the levels have the same names, they actually function very differently. The bumper car level just has you getting from point A to B rather than laps, and while the controls in the bumping are horrid, you can learn to do this one fairly simply. The Tunnel of Love has the same objective of avoiding objects, but to make it to the end you have to learn the objects' patterns fairly well. There are points where you need to be pixel perfect in your position to be able to dodge certain objects, which is very mean. Duck Hunt just requires you to hit a few ducks going back and forth, kind of like Space Invaders, but the tomato moves so slowly across the screen. You really have to time your shots to line up with them. The Space Ride is thankfully a lot simpler, with no meters to dodge or rotating all over the place, but still requires some accuracy to line up your craft correctly. The Funhouse is the only level that is completely different. Instead of that awful maze, we instead have a tile swapping game to make various pictures made more complicated by the picture containing a mirrored reflection. Very sneaky. The final level takes us to fight the Grumposaurus, I suppose, but this time it's a giant frog wearing a tie? Also, I don't know what Kermit is holding to tickle him with. While the bats and tornadoes aren't as bad in this version, you jump super slow, so it's even more tricky to hit the thing. On top of that, the boss's hitbox is virtually non-existent. Defeating the boss gets you a similar ending screen to the DOS version. The Apple II version is the same as the C64 one, just the Funhouse level has a different, easier sliding puzzle. Oh, and you can't actually complete the game. When you finish the 5 standard levels, the game invites you to swap discs to load the final battle, but no matter what I tried, I simply kept getting the disc error. I tried finishing the final level on the 2 different discs, same error. However, information online says that the game is unwinnable because beating the Grumposaurus sends players back to level select rather than the ending screen. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. I couldn't even load the final boss on any versions I tried. Either way though, yes, in short, this game is unbeatable on this Apple II version, so probably better off with the C64 one. A year later in 1990, the game got an NES port too. This one offers the biggest changes to the game. First of all, the game only has 4 levels selectable from this menu. Also, you can't choose the Muppet you want to play as, although that never made any difference anyway. The levels are also different too. River Ride is somewhat the tunnel of love as you ride downstream as Kermit. The obstacles here are again plentiful and hard to avoid, and you need pixel perfect placement to get through some of these gaps. Car Course is the bumper cars equivalent and just goes from A to B, avoiding all sorts of obstacles. Even though you can go quite fast, you'll just hit everything on the way, so you have to inch forward bit by bit to actually get through it. Space Ride is the absolute worst. You have to try and navigate your spacecraft by rotating and accelerating through some tunnels while you're constantly being fired at. You just bounce all over the place with next to no control. The Amazing Maze has you avoiding obstacles to collect items, kind of like Pac-Man without the fun. One other thing is that the levels just take so long to finish. It's just the same thing over and over, and with less levels in this version, you quickly just get bored of this repetitiveness. With the 4 levels done, you move on to the final level, which actually is a level and not just a boss. You play as Kermit with his feather as he sort of waddles along the level in a platformer style, jumping onto and over platforms. You can wiggle your feather at the various enemies and obstacles, but it does nothing, as you really should expect. I mean, come on, it's a feather. Eventually you'll make it to the Grumposaurus, who does look familiar to the DOS version of it, and you'll have to actually fight it to try and knock it off. As usual though, the hitbox defies all logic and reason, and it's near impossible to knock him back. Worse, if he gets too close, when you're knocked off, you'll respawn straight into it, knocking you off again until you are dead. It's grossly unfair. If you do manage to deal with this, you'll get to the actual final boss, which is somewhat more similar to the other versions, but you actually face off against Dr. Grump this time. You have to avoid the bombs he drops down, while you deflect the hearts back with your feather to bonk him on the head. Do that and we finally get to rescue Miss Piggy, who berates us for taking long enough. No. Piggy, Miss Piggy, you don't know what I had to go through for you. I went through this game 4 times. Well, nearly 4 times since the Apple II version was unwinnable. And while there are a lot of differences, none of them result in a good game. The graphics are basic, the controls are all terrible, the gameplay is just not fun, and way too difficult. Dr. Grump is a terrible villain, or is it the Grumposaurus, or is it both? I don't know. For the Muppets to be attached to this game is pretty shameful. They deserve better than this. I think someone else thought that too. The DOS, Apple II and C64 versions were actually titled Muppet Adventures No. 1, Chaos at the Carnival, suggesting that this was going to be the first in a series. Please no. So perhaps this abysmal effort cut the proposed series short. I don't think there was any hope for it anyway. Okay, we are free of the Carnival finally, and we can look at 2 handheld LCD games that were released. Firstly, Street Surfin was released in 1990, and as suggested by the radical, totally tubular images of the Muppets on the console, it's a skateboarding game. All you do is play as Kermit skateboarding down this hill, and you have to avoid objects and other borders as you go. Very little gameplay as you would expect from these sorts of games. Next, in 1993, Coach Kermit is a bigger beast, but the game is just a memorization sequence where you have to press the left and right buttons based on what you see Miss Piggy and Fozzie do on screen. Both of these games are very rare, and to date have not been dumped online for emulation, so they will be among the hardest Muppet games to actually play, even if there's not a lot of gameplay to them. Back to school in 1991 as we return to the realm of educational games and Muppet Math, released only on Apple II computers this time. The focus in this one is, as the title suggests, on maths, or math, depending on your location. Set in a school of some sort, there's 4 locations where we can hone our numeracy skills. In the art room, Kermit will give you questions based on shapes and geometry. Don't worry, he's wearing his beret so you know he's qualified to teach art. We can go see Mr. Gonzo, who will ask us the answers to sums of specific objects. If we get them right, the objects will appear in his classroom. We can head down to the gymnasium to find Miss Piggy sweating and dancing, and we'll have to count how many times she pulls off certain moves. Finally, we can grab some lunch in the cafeteria. Just kidding, you're just counting the cookies that the Swedish chef bakes. No food for you. Not much to say about this one again, nice and colourful enough, but, you know, it's maths. The Muppets return in 1996 in a new fully fledged video game, Muppet CD-ROM, Muppets Inside. Now this is a Muppets game. As soon as you boot it up, you get a version of the classic Muppet Show opening, reworded for this game.
It's time to boot the disc up, it's time to turn stuff on, it's time to meet the Muppets on the Muppet CD-ROM.
Getting into the game proper, we are treated to some full FMV with the actual Muppets and their actual voices. The plot sees Bunsen and Beaker's latest invention accidentally digitizing the Muppets and trapping them in your computer. Yes, yours. Kermit and Fozzie have to travel around the computers inside in the data bus to find the various Muppets trapped within the computer's internals and clear the map by playing various minigames. Meanwhile, Rizzo and Statler and Waldorf are outside the computer, providing very little help, as you would probably expect. The various minigames you have to play are Beaker's Brain, putting clips from the Muppet Show in the right order, Two Thumbs Down, which again requires you to unscramble a clip, this time rotating various cubes. Scope That Song sees Clifford, a then new addition to the Muppets, host a game show where you have to guess songs based on their performances by Marvin Suggs on his Muppephone, or New Zealand on his fish. Yes, really. This one is difficult because even if you know all of these songs, they don't really translate well to fish. Trivial but True is a Hollywood Squares type game where you have to answer questions to fill a line in a noughts and crosses grid. The questions themselves are not things you would learn every day. Walker on the Wild Side is a somewhat parody of the classic game Missile Command, where you have to shoot down various things being thrown at Fozzie as he tries to exit stage left. Death-defying Acts of Culture requires you to shoot Gonzo through various objects to hit the target, having you adjust the power and angle of the cannon until you get it right. Finally, Kitchens of Doom is quite obviously a Doom parody, playing a Swedish chef as you walk around a level, chopping and whisking food to find the exit. You can see that the presentation of this game is top-notch. It's got the actual Muppets, their voices, and is very well written, incorporating their characters into the world of computing, with a good amount of visual gags and jokes. The main issue with this game is the actual gameplay. In order to escape the computer, you need to clear every path, which means playing each minigame over and over, 10 to 20 times each. You quickly exhaust any value out of the simple and short minigames on the first or second go, so to keep playing them over and over with little variation just feels pointless. Based on my own playtime, it took nearly 7 hours playing the 6 minigames casually to make it to the end and get a single cinematic. It's not worth the payoff really. Fortunately, if you fail at any of the minigames that require answering multiple choice questions, the answers don't change if you retry, so you can trial and error your way through, but either way, it's long. Like I say, this feels like an authentic and well-presented Muppets production. The cast deal with the subject of computing in their typically humorous way. The trouble is actually playing the game. There's actually very little gameplay or content, and you quickly tire of the repetitive nature of the gameplay loop. You do get lots of clips from the original Muppet Show, and as I say, some new footage of the Muppets themselves, but yeah, very limited gameplay. Now we must turn to one of Sega's most obscure consoles, the Sega Pico. This is primarily an educational console, coming with its own drawing pad and stylus to draw with, and the games that were released for this system making use of this feature to teach writing and such forth. Of course, the Muppets made their way here in 1996, with Muppets on the Go. With this one, you're essentially on a road trip with the Muppets, visiting various places and having to solve various problems along the way. The way this works is a little complicated to explain. The game comes with a book that interacts with the stylus on the console, and you turn the pages of the book to visit different places. I'll just explain the different minigames we'll have to play along the way. In town, we can see a number of our Muppet friends. In the toy shop, we'll help Fozzie by selecting toys based on the silhouette on the chest. We can help Rizzo fix up a wall and climb up it with a little bit of platforming. And with Gonzo, we can head into the garden maze to pick up eggs that this chicken lays. Getting our road trip underway, we can start out with a nice picnic and play a Frogger-style game with Kermit. Makes sense, I suppose? At the picnic proper, we have to stop the ants and grasshoppers making off with all our stuff. Flip the page and we head to the mountains and snow, where we can take Gonzo snowboarding and pull off some tricks, as he loves to do. We can then move on to the beach and find the oyster in one of these shells, before heading out onto the ocean and learning about fish, before opening this treasure chest and giving us the opportunity to draw whatever we want. As it is an educational game for young children, there's not much substance to any of the levels, even when you set the difficulty to hard. The graphics are nice enough and the colours are vibrant to at least keep your attention. Also in 1996, the film Muppet Treasure Island was released, inserting the Muppets into the classic story and providing it with their unique twist. The film also got a tie-in game, released in the same year on PC. The game provides a twist on the twist of the film. It's a point-and-click adventure that has you following the events of the film with a few changes. Mainly, the main character Hawkins is changed to be you, as you play from his perspective. A new character, Stevenson the Parrot, accompanies you and provides hints about what to do next. The plot of the film is followed in its broad strokes and it allows you to participate in puzzle solving to advance the plot, as well as finding lots of little scenes of the characters as you click around, including the characters from the film such as those played by Billy Connolly and Tim Curry as Long John Silver. Not actually the first time Tim Curry has played a pirate too. He was Captain Hook in the 90s cartoon series Peter Pan and the Pirates.
Stow it, Collins, you chicken-hearted son of a Brooklyn broom bandit!
Anyway, the game itself is fairly short, and you can get through it in about the same time as the film's length of under 2 hours. Even so, it still comes on free CDs, owing to all that FMV goodness. It's also fairly simple, it's obviously designed for younger audiences, and it's very difficult to get too stuck. You can also ask Stevenson at any time to give you a clue about what to do, so things keep flowing nicely. The game's footage of the Muppets was filmed in conjunction with the Muppet CD-ROM game, so all the characters and voices provide their talents to make this feel like a solid addition to the franchise. It's a fun, self-contained experience, but short and easy, meaning there's very little challenge or replay value. I hope you don't think we were done with educational games because we still have a lot more to learn. In 1997, a 6-volume series of Muppets Kids games featured the Muppets as kids. Each game is introduced by Kermit and Gonzo, as adults, in FMV sequences that explain what you'll be learning and what extreme stunt Gonzo will be doing while you do so. As you go through the games, you'll help the various Muppets with certain tasks, including Gonzo, Fozzie, Rolf, Janice, and Bean Bunny. I'm sure someone out there's favourite Muppet is Bean Bunny. Also, I think Janice is supposed to be a kid, but she doesn't look that different from normal. Maybe she's immortal. As you go through the tasks, you'll occasionally cut back to Kermit and Gonzo and see how Gonzo is getting on with whatever attempt to place himself in mortal danger is going. You know, the one thing I've learned so far in all these games is how Gonzo likes pain. I mean, really likes pain. Volume 1 is capital and small, unsurprisingly focusing on capital and small letters. Volume 2 is beginning sounds, phonics. Volume 3 sound patterns, phonics. Volume 4 is thinking skills, which teaches pattern recognition and the like. Volume 5 is same and different. And finally, Volume 6 is sorting and ordering, which is exactly like it sounds. All of these seem fairly useful to learn, although by no means am I professionally evaluating the educational content of these games. The cutbacks to Kermit and Gonzo add in some fun and a reward for completing the tasks, and the illustrations are fun and colourful, but yeah, they're just more educational games. In 1999, 3 videotapes containing episodes of the series Muppet Babies were published for use with the Video Buddy interactive system. Somewhat like the Viewmaster Interactive, this pseudo-games console works with the videotapes by playing the episode of the show as normal, but at certain points the Video Buddy mascot, resembling some sort of demon spawn, rises from the depths to ask a question that the player must answer. They're very simple questions aimed at young children, so there's nothing really special to mention. These 3 tapes consist of the 3 episodes What's New at the Zoo, Scooter's Hidden Talent, and What Do You Want to Be When You Grow Up. The year 2000 was a big year for Muppet video games. We have a total of 4 games that were released in this year for 3 different platforms. The first we'll look at is Muppet Babies Toyland Train. Yes, it's an educational game. You can ride the train with Kermit to the different stops and take part in different activities, such as learning about different vehicles, shapes, animals, dressing up, and different body parts.
Nose!
He doesn't have a nose! The game just introduces a lot of different things, and Kermit and the other Muppets explain them. Kermit is voiced by his actor from the series, Frank Welker. Yes, that's right, Fred from Scooby-Doo and just about every other cartoon from the past 50 years. There's not much substance to this game, but the colours and animations are nice enough, I suppose. The next game from 2000 was Jim Henson's The Muppets, released for the Game Boy Color. This one was developed by... Oh no. Okay, so I immediately recognised this developer. These are the ones responsible for those god-awful Austin Powers games on the Game Boy Color. The ones which were barely games at all, but some parody operating system where you could just play sound bites from the films, and the gameplay was only 3 mini-games, which were just Othello, Rock Paper Scissors, and Pac-Man. Tarantula Studios were a division of Rockstar Games, who I blame in their entirety. Cancel Rockstar Games, cancel GTA 6, cancel it all. Someone has to pay for this. Right, where were we? Oh yeah, Muppets. As it stands then, I don't have high hopes for this game. The opening shows us that Bunsen and Beaker's latest invention is a time machine that accidentally traps all of the Muppets in different eras of history. Did they learn nothing from trapping the Muppets in the computer? To make matters worse, the Muppets are due to put on a big show, and with only Animal and Kermit remaining, they jump into the time machine to travel back and rescue their friends. Playing as Kermit and Animal, you'll have to go to each of the 6 eras in the game, collecting items from each level before unlocking a 4th where you'll find your Muppet friends. Swedish Chef in 1 million BC, Miss Piggy in 1000 BC, Ancient Egypt, Fozzie Bear in 50 AD, Ancient Rome, Rolf in 1000 AD, Aztec Empire, Gonzo in 1400 AD, Medieval England, and Sam Eagle in 1850, Wild West America. Each era forces you to play as either Kermit or Animal, who have slightly different abilities, including a super jump as Kermit or a stomp as Animal that wipes out all enemies on screen. As expected, this game has a lot of frustrations. It's a platforming game requiring you to navigate through the levels, but each level is a maze of alternate routes and one-way doors that make trying to find your way through a trying experience. Most of the levels also require you to pick up keys to open doors as well, just to add to the frustration of going around in circles. Nowhere is this more frustrating than in the Ancient Rome levels, where you have to find keys for doors, but those keys carry on to the other levels. So if you use a key in one level for a door in another, you can end up having to scout for another key elsewhere to try and advance. In fact, in some places, you need to pick up a key in one level for use in another, but the game never tells you this. Worse still, you can only carry 5 keys, meaning if you fill your inventory but need to pick up a specific key for a specific door, you'll need to travel around the levels to use a key to free up inventory space to allow you to pick up the key you want. The whole thing is a mess. This makes the 24 levels very long-winded and just a mess of doing the same thing over and over. You can choose any era to tackle in any order, so there's no scaling difficulty, and a feeling that you're never making any progress. In other areas of design, the item placement is inconsistent and makes little sense. There's piles of fruit to restore health when you don't need them, and weapon ammo is limited, so if you run out and need to get past an enemy, you'll just have to walk through them and take damage. There's no invincibility frames after you get hit either, so it's easy to just die. The worst thing though is the fall damage. It takes a very small fall to take damage, and in a game like this where you're always jumping around and across platforms, it is insufferable. I mean, When has a 2D platformer ever been able to incorporate fall damage effectively? There's also the question marks. I have no idea what the question marks do. I honestly don't think they do anything. Graphics are very basic and levels have a bit of a theme, but not much. In the Roman Colosseum level, you can head into the dungeon to find this. I don't know what's going on here and I don't want to know. Also, every time period seems to have conveyor belts. This obviously makes no sense, and it's little things like this that could have at least had an effort put in to fit the time periods. With every level being an incomprehensible maze, this stretches the game out into something way too long. Maybe that's better than the usual licensed Game Boy game taking 1 or 2 hours to complete, but at least you can complete them and accomplish something. In the Muppets, you just end up lost and going around in circles. Even with a guide, this took me about 16 hours to play through, and none of it was enjoyable or rewarding. The game has bosses at the end of each era, but all they do is walk back and forth, meaning that you just have to wait out of range and chuck your weapons at them until they disappear. Kermit has paper aeroplanes for weapons, while Animal has drumsticks, and yes, for some reason these poor excuses for weapons are scattered around the different time periods. Dinosaurs too busy making paper aeroplanes to notice their own extinction, no doubt. Now, I've played games that have this maze-like structure before, but they were PC or console games. This is a handheld game for children. It's the kind of game that really needs the player to draw a map to understand the levels. But again, this is a game for children on the go. Did they expect them to play in the back of their parents' car in one hand, while also having a stack of graph paper and pen in the other? Nothing in this game makes sense or is fit for purpose. It wants you to get lost going back and forth in the vain attempt to think that all that pointless playtime will make it value for money, but it simply offers you nothing. On the rare occasion you complete a level, you get to start another one and do the same thing all over again. There's just no point. This is one of the worst games I've ever played. There's no vision, no creativity, no consideration or thought gone into the design of anything. It's impressive how someone could make a game so obtuse and complicated without actually accomplishing anything, but that's it. If you manage to make it to the end of the game, you get to see the Muppet Show finally happen, and Statler and Waldorf being served humble pie. Literally. Well, they're not the only ones, my friends. I have also been humbled. How dare I expect a video game to be fun, enjoyable, playable? How dare I not expect one of the most beloved franchises to have a game so anti-fun, so devoid of charm, that it results in this non-directional mess? Truly, a stark lesson to us all. Okay, that's enough of that. The third game to be released in 2000 takes us to the Sony PlayStation. Muppet RaceMania is, as the title suggests, a racing game. Yep, a kart racing game featuring all of your favourite Muppets, racing on tracks inspired by the various Muppet movies. You can take part in standard races, battle courses where you use the weapons to be the last Muppet standing, and stunt trials, having to drive through courses full of jumps and obstacles to reach the goal. There's plenty of variety already, but on top of that, the game also has an adventure mode, where you have a set amount of time to collect various items or accomplish tasks within the levels. It's a bit like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, where you have a set time to do certain goals, just with Muppets. Yep, the game manages to become a good old-fashioned PS1 collectathon with loads of objectives in each level. You have to find Muppets to unlock them as playable characters, collect tokens, and push Doozer from Fraggle Rock into a portal. This is actually the only appearance of Fraggle Rock in any form in a video game, including a Fraggle Rock course you can unlock by rescuing Doozer in every level. In the battle courses you can even unlock boss battles. There's honestly quite a lot to do here. This game's biggest strength is its presentation and depth of Muppets lore. You have 25 playable Muppets you can choose from and unlock, all of them voiced by their usual actors. There's courses that are separated into being based off the various Muppet movies, and at the beginning and end of every race, Statler and Waldorf provide some sort of quip as they do.
The race starts at high noon.
That's our nap time.
Good, then we won't miss anything.
And you can even get clips from the various movies. Clearly, there's a lot of love and dedication gone into this, not only as a faithful and authentic Muppet product, but also a substantial game with a lot to do. The game does, however, come with a few significant drawbacks. First, the weapon selection is a bit bland. You have a fish to fire in front of you, a penguin to place behind you, a bomb to hit in front of you, again, and a chicken that can home in on enemies, although this often doesn't home very well for some reason. By collecting fruit on the tracks, you can use it to boost, or fill your meter to activate your special moves, which act as either lightning or a bullet bill in Mario Kart, allowing you to change the flow of race significantly. Overall though, there's nothing too unique about the selection that changes up the gameplay in any significant way. Secondly, the tracks are often very confusing in their layout, and it's too easy to get caught in obstacles and lose any sense of momentum. You have a mini-map in the corner of the screen, and you can see that it's just a mess to look at. There's plenty of shortcuts to at least utilise, and once you learn the tracks you have a distinct advantage. But the biggest criticism of the game really makes things difficult, and that's the controls. The vehicles are a nightmare to control, and have you sliding all over the place. Even ones with the best grip are still prone to this. What exacerbates this is that you have to have precision driving for a lot of the game's features. Take the stunt trial levels. You have to jump across platforms, use ramps, and navigate narrow walkways to reach your goal. All of these made frustrating thanks to how little control you have over your character. In the adventure mode too, when collecting all of the items on the track, you'll have to maneuver very carefully, and turning around is so slow it takes a lot of time. Worse still, you can't control the camera, so if you're trying to find something behind you, you won't be able to see it without reversing all the way back. Also, as we mentioned, this is a collectathon reminiscent of so many PS1 games, so if you don't want to just collect random items, this element of the game won't interest you. However, there are a lot of Muppets and vehicles locked behind doing those tasks. Another small quibble is that the menus make no sense. If I want to play the adventure mode, I have to load into a course, where I find another menu, then go into another menu to access adventure. Why not just have everything on the main menu? In a world full of licensed kart games, Muppet RaceMania does put in a lot of effort, more than most, to accurately bring its associated franchise to life. With so many characters, references to films and the like, you always know that this is a Muppet game first and foremost, and there's definitely plenty of things to do. However, it's just really awkward to actually play sometimes, and the controls are so often not fit for purpose. However, it's certainly a step above a lot of licensed racing games in terms of content. The fourth and final game released in 2000 is Muppet Monster Adventure, also for the PlayStation. In the opening cutscene we see some of the Muppets on their way to an old castle for the reading of Dr. Bunsen's uncle's will. Surely nothing can go wrong with this. When they get there, everything immediately goes wrong as the strange figure opens the door and Robin, Kermit's nephew, passes out. When he awakens, we see Bunsen, Beaker and Pepe the Prawn, but the rest of the Muppets who were with them have been kidnapped and transformed into monsters. Bunsen arms Robin with a backpack and power glove,
It's so bad.
and he sets off to collect energy, defeat enemies, and find a way to save his friends. The game is again a classic PlayStation-era collectathon. You'll play as Robin, visiting different levels, collecting various items, and partaking in minigames, which will in turn open up other levels, eventually letting you confront the transformed Muppets as bosses. Gonzo has been turned into Nosferatu, Fozzie into Waka Waka Werebear, Kermit is Kerr Monster, Clifford into Muck Monster, and Miss Piggy into Ghoul Friend of Kerr Monster, all parodying a classic Universal monster. You can probably figure them out. This game is very simple to sum up. It's Spyro, but with Muppets. Each level is fairly open, and you need to explore every corner to find the items you need. Most of the collectibles you can find along the way, but the game hides a few in some of the levels in very obtuse locations. In one of the earlier levels, you can easily find all but one of the evil energy. The final one is found behind an invisible wall in the form of a window that you would never instinctively find. Another one is in the beginning of the Temple of Pork, where you can see a collectible on an unreachable ledge, in which you have to glide into the fire to burn yourself and lift you up higher to glide again. But you don't need these odd ones to beat the game. Robin has a bunch of abilities related to the various Muppet monsters, such as Nosferatu's glide and Miss Piggy's karate chop, that will allow you to access new areas. You can get these abilities in the first level, where you have to collect pieces of different medallions, all of which you can get in about 5 minutes, and feels somewhat pointless if they're all at the beginning of the game. Clearly, the original idea was to have all of those abilities unlocked when you defeated the respective bosses, but this was changed fairly late prior to release. There's even dialogue in places where Pepe tells you to come back when you have an ability. This would have required a lot of backtracking every time you got a new ability to unlock previously inaccessible parts of levels you've already beaten, but I think this would have been overly complicated and ruined the experience. As it stands, you can get 100% in every level first time playing it, and the experience is fairly smooth. That's how I would describe this game really. It's very smooth and even, no real highlights, but it flows well enough. The levels are both open, yet have a sense of direction to reward exploration. The bosses aren't overly challenging, and you can get through the game without incident, with some extra polish in having the Muppets fully voiced. Probably the one thing that will stick with you though, is constantly hearing Pepe say okay after everything.
Other than here, okay? Way to go, okay? Earn this Muppet token, okay?
Everything is okay. Got it? Next is Muppets On With The Show, released in 2002 for the Game Boy Advance. The plot involves the Muppets putting on a show, a novel setup I know, and you having to take control of various Muppets to make it a success. The game story is told through cutscenes using 3D renders of the Muppets that are functional. At least they give us a little something to tie things together. The first stage has us playing as Kermit in the bayou, avoiding obstacles on the river until the timer runs out. Easy. Then we have the Swedish chef fighting to keep Rizzo and the rats away from his food. In the Muppet Labs, we control Beaker as we attempt to make sure certain items go into our new invention while keeping others out. Gonzo drives the world's slowest bike to collect crates and do the mildest of stunts. Kermit is kidnapped by Jurassic Pork, good grief, the giant cave pig, and you take control of Miss Piggy to karate chop boulders back at it. And finally, we perform an encore rhythm game with Animal and the Electric Mayhem Band. Yes, these levels are just minigames at best, and when you're done with them, that's all the game really has to offer. There's 20 minutes of gameplay, nothing more. Each level has a rating out of 5 you can get and 3 difficulties, but that's it. You can unlock 2 bonus games if you get a perfect star rating on all of the games, which involve piloting the USS Swine Trek, surviving being hit in an asteroid field, and controlling Fozzie to survive as long as possible without being hit by the various things thrown at him on stage for telling his bad jokes. The animation and graphics are nice, I suppose, but this game is just nothing. There's barely any gameplay, none of the minigames are anything original, and there's no way having 8 minigames justifies a video game at full price. In 2003 we have Muppet Pinball Mayhem, released for the Game Boy Advance. Yes, it's a pinball game where video game licenses go when they've run out of ideas. Apart from the Austin Powers games where they never had any good ideas to begin with. There's no unique twist or story to this one, it's just pinball. You have 4 tables to choose from based on the different Muppets: Kermit, Miss Piggy, Gonzo and Animal. The last one, which is unlocked by progressing through the Adventure mode. This mode is just completing all of the tables in order, activating the various games and objectives in each one, and beating them until the game tells you you can unlock the next one. At that point, when you run out of balls, you will move on. The objectives are sometimes difficult to work out, and there's the usual problem that you have so little control over your ball, so you're spending a lot of time pointlessly flipping the ball around the table with no progress other than racking up points. The music's okay, including a rendition of the Muppet Show theme, but overall there's nothing special about this game, and nothing special added through the Muppets license. Now, finally, we can return to the world of educational games. Yes, I know you've missed them. We have the final 4 learning games from 2003, all based on Muppet Babies, and more from the developers that made the only other Muppet Babies game, Toyland Train, that we have already seen. The first is Muppet Babies Sorting and Thinking. This one has you dressing up Skeeter and Scooter in different outfits and activities related to those. Also yes, it is mostly content taken from the Toyland Train game. Muppet Babies Land, Air and Sea lets us learn about vehicles, Animals in Nature is self-explanatory, I think you can work it out, and Shapes and Colours too, while you're at it. Nearly all of the content about these 4 games is taken from Toyland Train, so there's nothing really new to say about them. I suppose it's just easier for different CDs to be focused on different things. Also, yes, most importantly, we have plenty of songs sung by Kermit to entertain, although he does repeat some of them over the different games. Cheapskate. Again in 2003, which seems to be another busy year for the Muppets, is Spy Muppets, licensed to Croak, released for PC and Game Boy Advance. You don't have to have a Bunsen-sized brain to work out that this is going to be a James Bond's 007 parody of some sort. This is what the Muppets is best at, right? Inserting themselves into other franchises or works and parodying them is something the Muppets are best at. Right? Let's see. Upon starting a new game, we are introduced to Agent Frog, Kermit. You didn't need me to tell you that, as he is assigned by his boss, Sam Eagle, to put a stop to the plots of 3 villains: King Prawn, Pepe, Dr. Nose, get it? Dr. No? Dr. Nose, Gonzo, has a nose, and Piggy Galore. I'm not dignifying that one with a response.
I must be dreaming.
We're able to choose to tackle the villains in any order. Let's go for King Prawn first, I suppose. For this assignment out on the ocean, we are assigned Agent Rizzo, who can't swim. Brilliant. And a boat, which we go to get from Bunsen and Beaker in the labs, who decide that they have better things to do than prep your vehicle, so you'll have to do it yourself. Rude. Thus we launch into a mini-game, where we have to identify the parts of the vehicle from the silhouette. With that done, we can move on to piloting the hovercraft and chasing King Prawn's goons across the sea. Yep, it's another minigame. And yes, this is the whole game, just a bunch of minigames with very little skill or playability. You'll swim through the water dodging obstacles and then have to fight King Prawn himself by just sending his electric currents back at him. It's no different than the other minigame levels really. With King Prawn stopped, he appears in the background of the scene when you're talking to Sam again, as you choose a villain to stop. Whichever one you choose, you'll again have to fix your vehicle since Bunsen and Beaker are too busy with the enemy gadget you brought back from the last boss. How strange. But yes, even in a game entirely composed of minigames, it still wants to repeat some of them 3 times. The next level after the vehicle will always be a chase in a vehicle too. Dr. Nose is hidden somewhere in his secret base. Gee, I wonder where that is. And Piggy Galore is hiding in a factory, neither of them offering anything exciting. When all 3 villains have been locked up, the mastermind is revealed as Bunsen and Beaker, in the least surprising twist ever, as they were clearly too busy to help you at any point. What is shocking though, is that it's not Bunsen and Beaker at all, and take off their disguises to reveal Statler and Waldorf. Okay, that's genuinely a twist. As such, you'll have to do one more boss fight and the game is over. This game was made by Vicarious Visions, who also made the Muppets On With The Show game we saw earlier. You may not have needed me to tell you that, because Spy Muppets is almost exactly the same format as On With The Show. It's just a collection of very uninvolved minigames, even having the audacity to repeat some of them. Spy Muppets does at least have the whole 007 theme and a thin story to wrap everything around, but there's still nothing to this game. You can get through it in less than an hour, and the only replayability is the 3 levels of difficulty, and each level having a ranking out of 5 you can try and get. But you can see everything this game has to offer in less than an hour, and there's just not a full game's worth of content here. The graphics and cutscenes are nice enough and so is the music, but there's very little else to recommend it, and it isn't taking huge advantage of the 007 theme. The PC and Game Boy Advance versions are identical in terms of content, the only difference being the lower resolution of the GBA, obviously. But even then, some animations have more frames than the PC version. The one major difference is that the Game Boy Advance version doesn't have a save function, you just get passwords after each level instead. Is there any real excuse for passwords in a 2003 game? The developers did the same in the On With The Show game too. Cute idea and use of the Muppets, but barely any gameplay, and never reaches the level of fun necessary to justify its purchase. Somehow, there's one more game released in 2003. Muppets Party Cruise was released on GameCube and PlayStation 2. It's a party game developed by Mass Media Inc., who had already created such party games as Pac-Man Fever and Shrek Super Party. At least they've got experience. So in the opening cutscene, we see the setup for the game, with the Muppets planning a vacation on a cruise ship. However, it seems that Pepe has not booked first-class tickets, but tickets for the first deck, down at the bottom of the ship. Damn it, Pepe. We'll have to work our way up through the decks, which are the different boards of this game, to get to the top and enjoy our cruise in full. We can choose to play as one of 6 Muppets: Pepe, Gonzo, Kermit, Piggy, Fozzie, and Animal. And we have to move around the board collecting cruise credits and taking part in minigames found through the various doors to win party favours based on the colour of the door, the game ending when a player gets 3 party favours of the same colour. Here's where the progression system comes in. You use the party favours you earned during the game to put towards unlocking other minigames, and every 3 minigames you unlock also unlocks a new deck to play on. My question here is, why? This is a party game to pick up and play with friends. Why would you introduce grinding to it to lock most of the game away? At the start you have 1 deck and about 6 minigames to play. You can earn about 5 to 10 party favours a run, and minigames can cost between 5 and 20 party favours. So that means you're just going to have to play the same single board and the same few games over and over again until you can at least unlock 1 or 2 other things. But the game just isn't fun enough to really incentivise players to go through the game over and over to maybe unlock a minigame which might be interesting. The boards don't really have a lot going on, just a giant floor to walk around on, but at least there's plenty of opportunities to get to minigames quickly. The minigames themselves are a varied bunch. Some are good, some aren't, but there's also an issue with the difficulty. Some are very easy to win every time, while some are near impossible against the computer-controlled characters. For example, there's a bingo game which is simple to win as long as you pay attention, as the AI always ticks off wrong numbers and screws themselves over nearly every time. You can spend cruise credits to get bonus points for a minigame if you want to boost your score before you begin, which is interesting, but also disincentivises actually playing them at some point. If a player puts in a load of points before the game begins, they're almost guaranteed to win, and there's no point in taking part, which lowers the fun for everyone else involved if the game already has a foregone conclusion. I think there's also an issue with just how slow-paced the game is. In Mario Party, for example, you roll the dice and move along predefined routes, and land in a space where something happens. In Muppets Party Cruise, you roll the dice with this thing that fires the ball around into one of the holes associated with a number at the bottom. Then the player has to choose the path they want to take, which can be increased by picking up these cruise credits. Combining these things means that players' turns often take way too long for no reason, where nothing of consequence happens. Look, I get that it wants to distinguish itself from Mario Party, but you're really ruining the quick-paced fun if you're bloating it with unnecessary mechanics. As I say, minigames are plentiful, so that helps keeps things going, but again, if a minigame is for a colour of party favour you don't need, you're not going to be as invested in winning. I think Muppets Party Cruise is a fine party game. There's some fun minigames in there, and has plenty of the Muppets that are authentically voiced, not just limited to the playable characters, but also others such as Rolf, Bunsen, Beaker, and Statler and Waldorf, that can randomly show up on the board and affect the game in some way. The trouble is, as I mentioned, that so much of the game is locked away, and it means playing the same few minigames on the same board repeatedly to unlock anything new. This, combined with how slow-paced some of the unique features make the game, mean that it's hard to maintain the energy and excitement necessary to really make it a party. In 2006, we have the first Muppets game for mobile phones. It's Muppets Dance Party, or Muppets Puzzle Party, depending on your region. First of all, I need to prepare you for something. The cover art for this game is one of the most cursed things I've ever seen. I need you to brace yourself for this, okay? Here we go. I present to you 2006, distilled into its purest, most hip and happening form. Look at the state of this. We've got Kermit, or Frog Durst here, with a gold chain and ultimate hip-hop aesthetic. Get it? Hip-hop? Because he's a frog, and frogs hop. Gonzo is John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever. Miss Piggy wearing a pink tracksuit that's more revealing than I need it to be. Fozzie is a country star of some form, and Animal is just Animal. Metal is eternal, I guess. Oh, and the pièce de résistance in this aesthetic atrocity is Statler and Waldorf, who have finally got with the times and become DJ Mixmaster geniuses. Truly, people will look back in years to come and gaze upon this monument to 2000s culture and marvel at just what the hell was going on here. Okay, let's see if the game can explain whatever the hell this is. There's trouble afoot at the Muppet Show. Unable to bear it any longer, Waldorf and Statler have taken control of the stage. Now as Wally D and Statcat, they're mixing the music, spinning the wrong tunes, and trying to give our heroes 2 left feet. Wally D and Statcat, I hope you heard that. Life will never be the same. This game is at its core just a puzzle rhythm game hybrid, in which you have to match up blocks into combos to build up score and fulfill objectives. In the levels, blocks will come to you from the bottom consisting of different shapes and backgrounds, all with different colours. You can put them into one of the 3 blocks at the top, and matching 3 of the backgrounds, shapes or colours will earn you points. Doing this consecutively will net you combos, and in order to beat each level you'll have to fulfill certain objectives such as getting so many square-shaped combos, and getting over a certain score, at which point you will enter a showdown with Statler and Statcat and Wally D, where you have to fill the meter at the top through more combos. It's fairly unique in terms of gameplay, but it also gets overwhelming very quickly. You only have a second or two to decide where an upcoming block will go, and you need to think about the shape, background, the type of note, the colour of each, and how they will or will not make a pattern, and whether that pattern will fulfill one of your objectives, all in such a short pace of time, it's difficult to purposely construct huge combos, and you're relying a lot on intuition and luck to get you through. There's simply not enough time to factor in all of this stuff. There's even times where the goal is to have each square be completely different to the others. The game has 5 levels featuring each of the 5 Muppets we saw at the start: Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Kermit, Gonzo, and Animal. Beating a level on each of the 3 difficulties unlocks different outfit for your characters that is just a simple recolor. The game records your high scores for you to try and beat, but there's nothing much else to this game to really enjoy. It's unique enough, sure, but there's way too much to process and consider when making moves to effectively give the time for players to make informed choices. The music is a big part of the whole setup of this game, but the actual songs are very bland and basic. Not a fault of the creators, but there's very little you could do with the music on mobile phones in 2006. So overall, an interesting take on a puzzle rhythm genre remix, but not much content and quite overwhelming. However, we shall remember it forever, for its capturing of the zeitgeist of 2006 with this testament to the noughties. Continuing with the mobile games, we have Animal Drummer, released on Apple mobile devices in 2009. This one is a more standard rhythm game, in which you have to imitate animals' drumming sequences with taps on the screen. Nothing too complicated. The game, however, has long since been removed from sale. There were other games planned in this series based on other Muppets that included Gonzo Grams, Pepe's Love Meter, and Statler and Waldorf's Theatre, but these were never released, and details on what they actually entailed seemingly non-existent. Now, it's that time where we have a look at some of the browser games based on the Muppets that have been made over the years, for completionists' sake. Animals Keep the Beat is somewhat similar to the Animal Drummer game, but you can choose from 5 different members of the Electric Mayhem Band: Zoot, Animal, Floyd, Janice, or Dr. Teeth, and memorize musical sequences on their personal instruments. Gonzo's Pipe Express has us using various pieces of pipe to complete some plumbing for Gonzo. We have a Hidden Numbers game where we unsurprisingly hunt for hidden numbers in stills from the 2011 Muppets film. Kermit's Look-a-Pond needs us to find Kermit and various items in his pond. Smacky De Snacky features the Swedish chef as you try and whack as many vegetables as you can within the time limit. The Great Gonzo's Ridiculously Dangerous and Downright Foolish Stunt game has you trying to launch Gonzo out of a cannon into a tub of water by adjusting the power and trajectory of the cannon, similar to the minigame featuring Gonzo in the Muppets CD-ROM game. Catch Constantine was released in conjunction with the Muppets Most Wanted film, and requires you to find Constantine, the thief which looks identical to Kermit as many times as you can, while collecting the rubies he drops to get extra time. Here's another Hidden Numbers game. Animal's Beat Craze is a simple rhythm game where you play the drums alongside Animal. Miss Piggy's Fashion Domination has you making costumes for Miss Piggy. In Fozzie's Comedy Quest, you control the bears you try to avoid a host of obstacles to get from backstage and into the spotlight across 4 levels. The Muppets Great Search gives you the task of driving across the world to pick up 30 different Muppets and get the band back together within the time limit. Using various abilities to drive across the ocean and through mountains, nothing gets in the way of the Muppets. And based on the reboot of the Muppet Babies cartoon, we have Muppet Babies Time to Play, in which you have to play minigames with all of the Muppets, including New Edition's Summer Penguin, until they are tired enough to take their nap. Aww. 2013 saw the release of My Muppets Show on iOS and Android, within which you have to clean up the Muppets stage and recruit various Muppets to perform. With each one you recruit through using coins made over time, you add to the song that the Muppets play, and you can buy decorations and the like to customise the stage. With the use of the robot E. Hank, you can also combine Muppets to recruit new ones. Don't ask me how that works. Not much to the gameplay here, but fun to create music with the Muppets in a low pressure way. Moving ahead to 2014, we have the most recent game in the franchise, Muppets Movie Adventures, released on the PS Vita. As the title suggests, you'll be playing as various Muppets as they star in various movies. There's Kermit in a pirate-themed movie, not Muppet Treasure Island, Miss Piggy as a brave knight saving the damsel in distress, Kermit, Animal in an old western, Gonzo in a horror movie featuring vegetables, and Kermit once again in a sci-fi adventure. Each movie consists of a number of platforming levels that utilise some of the unique Vita controls, such as tilting the console, and honestly, there's not a lot to say here. It's a very simple 2D platformer with little flair or excitement. The animated movies at the beginning of the levels are simple with a bit of a fairy tale charm, but there's no classic Muppets humour, and none of the familiar characters are voiced, making it feel a bit lacking compared to other games in the franchise. Nothing majorly offensive, just a bit flat. So while that's every Muppet video game, we should now quickly look at the Muppets' appearances and cameos in other video games. In no particular order, Disney Infinity had a number of Muppet-related items, including the Muppets featuring as townspeople, and vehicles such as the electric Mayhem bus and the USS Swine Trek from the Pigs in Space skits. There may have been additional Muppets content planned, but the development stopped with the release of the 3.0 update. Disney Universe featured a number of different costumes based on Kermit, Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Gonzo and Animal. The mobile game Disney Magic Kingdoms, which has you building your own Disney theme park, has the Muppets appear alongside other Disney franchises, and a number of missions based around them. Similarly, they also appear in Disney Heroes Mobile. Disney Speedstorm features Kermit, Fozzie and Miss Piggy as playable racers, with a number of other Muppets acting as crew members that can boost these Muppet stats. And Just Dance Dance Party on the Nintendo Wii has the Muppets show theme as one of its songs. Probably the most significant collaboration is with the Little Big Planet series. In Little Big Planet 2, there's a Muppets level kit consisting of a few levels filled with references to the franchise. You can also get various costumes of different Muppets to wear, such as Kermit, Rolf and Janice. And these are usable across other games in the series, Little Big Planet and Little Big Planet Karting. And there we have it. That's every Muppets video game. What can we say about them? It's a mixed bag that I suppose reflects the Muppets' diversity in appearing in multiple genres and media. There's also a big split between about half of them being educational and learning games for children, and a number of the rest being FMV games or utilising the actual Muppets in the game. The educational games are fine, there's not really a lot of gaming to do in them, although it is nice in games such as the Muppet Kids and Muppet Babies games, where you get the actual voices of the Muppets to give it that added authenticity. Games such as Muppet Treasure Island and the Muppets CD-ROM utilising the actual Muppets for the FMV scenes puts you right into the centre of the Muppets experience, and clearly a lot of effort was made to achieve that immersion. The PS1 games Muppet RaceMania and Muppet Monster Adventure also feature the Muppets' voices that just make you feel like you're playing as the Muppets. Special shout out to RaceMania for just cramming in so many Muppets as playable characters and references to the different movies, even if the gameplay and controls fail to match that level of quality. Most of the rest of the games can essentially be described as dull and underwhelming minigame collections. Look, I get what they were trying to do. The Muppets are a variety franchise, they work as skits, short sequences, and that should translate into minigames. But without that added sense of Muppets fun, or using the voices or actual Muppets, the gameplay just isn't strong enough to make them good games. Chaos at the Carnival is no fun at all and barely playable. While we mentioned the Muppets CD-ROM as being nicely produced, the actual gameplay is just playing the same 6 minigames about 20 times. Games such as Muppets On With The Show and License to Croak are minigames that you can beat in about an hour, and there's nothing else to do. There's no real replayability in them. Muppets Party Cruise you might think would be the perfect format for the Muppets then, but the game is too slow-paced and bogged down with pointless mechanics, and many of the minigames lack any fast-paced energy. With all that said, it's quite difficult to choose a best Muppet game, as they all have their flaws. Muppet Treasure Island is the first one I would nominate, because it was made in conjunction with the movie, featuring all the Muppets, voices, and Tim Curry. I mean, come on, what more do you want? Despite being very well produced though, it is a very easy point and click, and you can complete it quicker than watching the actual film. The Muppets CD-ROM is likewise very well done, and is packed with relevant jokes related to computing, but as mentioned, it's just the same minigames over and over with little else to do. Nevertheless, I think the best game is between these two. The worst game has to go to the Muppets Game Boy Color game. Even though it functions better than Chaos at the Carnival, everything about this game is a nightmare to play, every level being a horrid labyrinth of doors, keys and platforming, marred by awkward controls and unfair fall damage, which sucks the joy out of the experience. The music is grating, the bosses are non-functional, hell, even Statler and Waldorf's quips are terrible. There's no fun or joy on this cartridge. It is the antithesis to everything Muppets. So, what does the future hold for the Muppets? Well, I think they're timeless. They'll be back time and again, in many different forms. Particularly being owned by Disney offers them the possibility to appear just about anywhere the mouse treads. And no doubt video games will form a part of that. As they say, the show must go on. Thanks for checking out this video game Odyssey 4, The Muppets. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. You can also check out my Twitch channel where I played through all of the games featured in this video on stream. There's also the stream archives on the extra YouTube channel, and you can also support the channel on Patreon or Ko-Fi. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you for the next Video Game Odyssey.